having him on your team and making some other team better. And you should still, even if it's midway through the season, be able to get something back, even if it's pennies on the dollar for him. So I wouldn't buy him out.
From what I heard, they're not going to. They're not even considering that.
I mean, it's the Knicks. It's always a consideration. All right, sticking with the Knicks, let's go to free agents really quickly. We had talked about this nice young piece, Endor. They waived him. He's gone.
Yeah, as I said, I don't think he was that nice. He was. He was.
He was someone that
he might be re-signed though.
Yeah,
to those waivers.
I think he was a good player to keep around. I don't think he's my starter. I don't think he's my second stringer, but he's definitely player 12 through 15 that I would keep on the team.
Yeah.
Speaking of 12 through 15, they re-signed Ron Baker because they need a point guard.
Look at that hair. I love Ron. I think they signed him. I think for too much.
I don't think
it's
so.
It's all about potential there. He does have a good amount of potential. I saw some things that you can really like in him.
His knowledge is far superior to his ability.
Yeah, but his ability, he's a playmaker, and that's always nice to have, even if he's not a starter. And, even if he's not your backup point, he can play, any guard position. He could be a 2 guard.
The problem with him was that when he did actually get to play, he worked better with the second team than he did with the first. So he worked better with Lance Thomas and Mundaugas Kuzminskis than he did with Kristaps Porzingis, Carmelo Anthony. So that right there is a little bit of an issue, especially if he's going to be the point guard on the team while Ntilikina learns.
Right.
Which right now looks like they might have to do that, or if they're going to keep, Courtney Lee, which I've heard they might not. They might have to transition him to point guard for a while.
Yeah. He does have a lot of potential. He's young. I think again they signed him for a little too much. I'm not as upset with that as the other one, but he could take a step up this year. He could be like Galloway was, and showed flashes, and then really took a step up, and then they let him go.
And they're going to re-sign him eventually.
Possibly. As the Knicks are wont to do.
But we're going to now go to the big contract.
THJ.
I almost said Otto Porter. That's just hopeful. Tim Hardaway. Let me ask you really quickly, the amount $71 million, would that be as bad, in your opinion, if they didn't also have the big Joakim Noah contract?
No. The Noah contract is what makes it even worse. It's not a good contract. It's not the worst contract in the NBA. There are far worse ones. But the fact that you not only gave him over $70 million over 4, which is way, way more than he was likely to get, you also gave him a 15% trade kicker. Like, if he explodes or becomes something that could be a trade asset, you just kind of screwed yourself over there. So I don't understand the signing, and that's why I'm happy that Perry's in, because I think Perry is much more knowledgeable on what players are actually worth, and Mills was going after players he just liked. And
probably.
I don't like GMs that do that. I get that you like a player, but you don't sign him for like 1.5 times what he's worth.
Yeah, because I think who was it? Who did he play for? Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did step up. At first in Atlanta he looked bad. He went down to their D League for a second, but then he came back
and played really well.
Looked really great on offense, and I think he's going to continue to be pretty great on offense.
He's going to be a replacement for Carmelo. That's entirely what he is.
Not as effective.
I think he will be as effective because I think he's going to be better on defense than Melo was. Not as good on offense.
Tim Hardaway Jr. is horrible on defense. He is.
Carmelo Anthony didn't even play defense.
Neither did Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's worse on offense, and I think he's equal on defense to Melo, and that's not saying a lot. And Melo, at least when it was a big game, did play defense. I don't know if Tim Hardaway Jr. Has that ability.
Well, that is yet to be seen, and we'll find out. But I think one of the reasons that they went for Tim Hardaway Jr. so hard is because he's a player who fits in what Hornacek wants to do.
Right, which is that young talent, and I think that's kind of the identity they're trying to establish. So maybe this is just, a bit of a painful way of starting that. It could mean awesome things for the future. You like a team to have something established, like a young, lengthy identity that, is hungry and could gel and get pretty good.
They almost tried to pursue Rajon Rondo.
That would have been interesting. Would have been someone for that. Like, I would have really liked to see Frank under though, because Frank is a good shooter. Could even be elite. We don't know until we see him, but yeah. he was doing real well shooting, and he's a very good defender already, and he's a good passer. But under Rondo's tutelage, could become a fantastic passer.
Yeah, definitely. So now we're going to talk about what they weren't able to do, and that is secure quality free agents. And that right there is the part that scares me the most. They had the opportunity to go after some quality free agents, and while they may have been in discussion, it seemed like they were just sitting on their hands doing absolutely nothing until Tim Hardaway Jr. did, which absolutely.
I don't think a lot of free agents wanted to come.
Well,
I think maybe that could change. I think this was a painful type of offseason that is kind of a wake up call for the Knicks, and maybe if they keep their stuff together through this season, then players are going to be like, oh, hey, New York looks like they're actually, doing it right this time.
There were a few free agents that had quote-unquote mutual interest. Like George Hill, what's his name from the Pacers?
Hill's too old.
What's his name from the Pacers?
Not
Teague.
Teague. Teague was interesting.
They both had quote-unquote mutual interest, and the Knicks just sat on their hands.
Well, no, the Knicks did make an offer to Teague, if I remember correctly, and Teague chose to sign with
the Bucks.
The Bucks instead, which I don't blame him for. The Bucks have the exact kind of organization that I wish the Knicks would start to develop.
All right, so then let's. That brings me to the next point. Let's turn this paper over. Actually, is this one? The Milwaukee Bucks. We're going to get away from the Knicks for a minute, kind of. So last season, before the trade deadline, the New York Knicks had the opportunity to trade Derrick Rose for not Marco Rubio, Ricky Rubio, straight up.
Yeah,
and Phil Jackson was just waiting and waiting and waiting, and then the Bucks are like, you know what? Deal's off the table. And then Phil's like, no, we'll take it. And they're like, too late. So now the Knicks don't have Rubio, are going to lose Rose to the Bucks anyways.
I don't want Rose back.
I don't want Rose back either.
We should have made that trade. But hindsight's 20/20. At the time, Rose was looking pretty good. I still think it was dumb because Rose is such an injury risk and not as much of a distributor as Rubio is. That I kind of wish they had done it. But at the time, I was, I think, 55-45 on making the trade, whereas now, obviously, it's like 99.999. I
was literally 100% on the trade the entire time. Because Ricky Rubio, I was the biggest Ricky Rubio doubter when he was drafted. Like 2 years, it's been 2 years, he's not even in the league yet. Like, what is this? And then when he came, I was like, I've seen the error of my ways. I have seen the error of my ways. So I completely think wholeheartedly that when I heard that trade was a possibility, do it. Don't even question. Do it. Derrick Rose will not be in New York longer than this season.
And that's why I was certainly leaning that way too, is because I thought Rose was just trying to make himself a contract year.
Because he's on a big stage.
Yeah, and get a nice big one last big contract before he inevitably gets hurt. And unfortunately, it happened too soon for him.
Still going to get a pretty big contract, though.
But we'll see. Yeah, he's not going to get like vet minimum, but I don't think he's worth too much with that injury risk.
I bet he'll find a team that would be willing to give him $100 million.
No way.
4 years, $100 million.
No way. He's not worth that.
I know he's not.
I would give him 10 a year at most.
I know he's not worth that, but he has one thing in his favor. He could say, when I was playing with the Knicks first 20 games, look what I did. We were in playoff contention.
And I'd say...
And then I got hurt.
Yeah, you got hurt this year, and you got hurt last year, and you got hurt the year before that, and before that. And
that's
before
what
that.
you would say.
You haven't played a full season in how long? And that's what any GM should say. If anyone's stupid enough to give him $100 million, then they deserve to be immediately fired. Like, on the spot. Like don't even... The offer comes out and you're fired. That contract is not only torn to shreds, not only burned, but the ashes are scattered in different areas of the earth so they can never be put together again. Like, that is how dumb that contract would be.
I'm not saying that I would do it, but I'm saying I could see someone doing it. A team that's desperate, that has money, the Nuggets, you don't think they would?
Not $100 million. Why would you? Because who else is going to offer him that? There's not going to be a bidding war for Rose that gets above $10 million a year.
I mean, there was no bidding war for him before, and he still got 23 from the Knicks
for 1 year, for a 1 year contract
yeah.
when he was, looking healthy again. He's I don't know. He kind of proved that it was smart to do a 1 year deal for that, because a 1 year deal is a lot less of a commitment than a 4 year deal. For that much money.
Okay, so then...
Unless you do a super front-loaded contract where he's getting 60, but it's the first
3 years,
two, and then
3
you
years,
can cut
$60
him
million
without.
Contract.
If you didn't cut him after a year, sure.
I like I said, I wouldn't do it. I don't think he's worth more than $5 million a year.
That's what I would want to sign him for, but I think teams will give him 10 a year because the cap is so ridiculously high.
Right. So... free agency in general, how do you think that's gone so far other than the Knicks suck? It's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Like every team or every player's going to the Rockets.
Yeah, it's kind of slowed down now. Kind of hoping for some more shoes to drop. Hoping one of those is the Melo trade, and then we can stop hearing about it.
But we won't, though. Regardless. Because you know what's going to happen? He goes somewhere else, wins a championship. Melo does what he couldn't do in New York.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh.
I don't hate Melo as a person. I just don't want him on the team anymore because he's not the right fit. I still, I would love to see him win a championship. I don't mind the Rockets, sure.
If he'd be willing to take less money and sit on the bench and only come in for 10 to 12 minutes a game, I'd keep him, definitely.
Well, that wouldn't be his role on the Knicks, though. There's just not the talent there for him to be a bench player.
Well, I mean, that's the part of taking less money. Then you could get the talent.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, though.
No, I'm just saying.
It's just
nice.
if we had a few more pieces now instead of all these holes, then sure he could be relegated to that third option. I think that's his place is the third option, and I think that's what he's going to be with the Rockets. You got Harden, and you got Chris Paul, and
you still got Trevor Ariza.
Right, but Chris Paul loves to pass. Chris Paul, doesn't always need to shoot, so I think he's going to be perfectly happy.
Ariza might be the third piece.
I think Melo's a better scorer than Ariza by a long shot.
Maybe.
And, I think you kind of strategize how you play them, and defensive plays you look to Ariza, offensive plays you look to Melo.
Makes sense. So, going from free agency to just absolutely ridiculous claims.
I already know what you're going to say.
The Nets.
The Nets are not making the playoffs. That is insanity. That is Linsanity, I guess. And this is coming from someone that thinks Jeremy Lin is a serviceable player. He's in my opinion, he's